Hey everybody, I hope you are having a fantastic week and welcome to the latest episode of the Agency Accelerator Podcast. In today's episode, I am talking with Steve Slotow from Globital Marketing, and we're talking everything to do with resourcing and working with white label partners, how to pick a partner, when you should outsource and why you should outsource. So this is another action-packed episode, and let's get on with today's show.
Accelerate your agency's profitable growth with tools, tips, and value-added interviews with your host, agency owner and coach, Rob DaCosta.
So welcome to today's episode of the Agency Accelerator Podcast. I am really excited to have Steve Slotow with me. He is the Director of Operations at Globital Marketing. And Globital offers digital agencies around the world access to wholesale white label digital marketing solutions, including SEM, SEO, social media, lead generation, web design, and copywriting campaigns. So Steve, welcome to the podcast. This is an interesting episode and an interesting topic, rather. It's one that I talk frequently to my clients about. So I thought it would be really great to have you on the show. So do you want to give us a little bit more background on yourself and on Globital as well?
Yeah, sure. How's it, Rob? Thanks for having us. It's always nice to meet other digital people doing media, creating content. I think it's a big thing in the digital industry. We all talk about the importance of content, but very few of us actually get around to doing much of it. So good to be to know that you're out there doing it regularly. Yeah, for sure. Globital, pretty straightforward. Was started a few years ago, about 5-6 years ago, by my partner Damien Papworth. He's out in Australia. He's an ex-agency owner himself, ran a digital agency for many years and sold it off. And when he went to make his next move, he saw an opportunity he was working with a team in Pakistan he was using for his agency. And he just basically, approached them and said, guys, let's start a wholesale business. There's a lot of digital agencies out in Australia that could really benefit from having a partner who they can rely on to do resourcing and that sort of thing. And I think straight off the bat, one of the keys that Damo sort of headed out for was because he had run his own digital agency, he was very sensitive to the frustrations that digital agency owners around the world feel. Things like most digital agencies have tried a resource out in Pakistan or India or Eastern Europe, or someone on Fiverr or Updesk or all of these sort of solutions. A lot of agencies have tried them and more often than not, they walk away quite disillusioned, let down. Maybe they're freelancers, or they just disappear with the work, and they never, they get paid and they disappear, and their Gmail account doesn't work. So, that sort of was one of the main frustrations that I think Damien was trying to solve with it. But there were a few other key frustrations that I think he looked at. Things like being charged in local currency. We're so used to being charged in American dollars. It makes a big difference if you're in South Africa or you're in New Zealand and you're getting charged in New Zealand dollars. Standardized flat rates for an SEO campaign or a blog. But billing, that's another one, is often when you work with a retailer or a wholesaler, the engagement starts off with, "Hi, nice to meet you. What's your credit card details?" And, it doesn't really harness much trust or build much trust in the relationship. You don't know what you're getting straight off the bat. So that's what we try to do at Globital, is try and remove some of those frustrations. And we win and we lose. There's ups and downs. Obviously, not all agencies are right for us. And I'll talk a bit about that. Obviously, we talk about, resourcing and outsourcing. But yeah, that was sort of how the business got started. I joined Damo 4 or 5 years ago as well, as a copywriter, more as bringing in the copywriting from the South African perspective, English first language, and we're cheap. Our rand is not so strong, so it was a good solution for copywriting. And off we went. Since then we've just built the engagement up to, we're now in a bunch of countries all over the world. We've got our main teams in Pakistan, but I think the real key to how we work and how we're different to those Updesk and freelancers and those sorts of things is that we really try to partner up with the agency. We see ourselves as sort of caretakers and support system. We're a support structure. Not the most exciting business in the world. We're not a fancy digital agency with cool artwork on the wall, but we're behind the scenes of those agencies saying, "Hey, listen, local resources are expensive. Why don't you rather, use us for an SEO campaign? Are you trying to do a web project that's expensive? Use us," kind of thing. So that's sort of where Globital kind of comes in and fits into the picture. And how we see ourselves, it's not as you know, the digital industry is not an easy one. It's competitive, unfriendly, cutthroat. So we try to be that nurse, caretaker, hold our hand, we'll walk you through it with us kind of thing.
So in my experience, as agencies grow, they think about how they can provide their customers with a more diverse range of services, or their customers might be asking them for it. And at that stage, they've got to decide, do they bring those skills in-house, or do they work with a partner such as yourselves? So what's your views on that? And what advice would you give an agency when they're at that crossroads?
Cool. Well, look, I think, obviously each agency is different, and each agency's got to walk their own path and make their own decisions. What we find quite often is a lot of digital agencies, and there are a lot of digital agencies, especially during COVID. We've seen this low barrier to entry, everybody starting a digital agency. A lot of digital agencies start out because somebody's created something. So they're a great graphic designer, they're a great web designer. And so they build a few websites and they realize, hey, listen, I've got a knack for this. I'm pretty good at it. I can start charging people for it. And then they grow to a point where they require help. They get too busy. And, we're not everyone's built for business. And I think that sort of journey that you walk around being great at web design or graphic design or copywriting, whatever it is, and understanding when a business needs help and what the next step for your business and the next evolution for your business is important. Because as you've asked, what is the advice about when they get to that stage? A lot of digital agencies don't even recognize that they're at that stage. They recognize that, hey, listen, I've gotten busier. That means I've got to work nights now. That means I've got to work weekends. And they don't recognize that it's actually time to look for help and to evolve my business. When that does happen, we're just there for the agencies that need the help. And when they're ready, they come talk to us and hopefully we can make it work with them. We don't obviously force or prescribe that they must use an outsourced solution. But I would say that, if you're great at web design and that's what you do best, and you're growing in your web design department, it's often best to, if it's something you want to keep close to your heart, hire another web designer and grow your team that way. Because then you have the control and what made your business great, what got your agency started, what your secret sauce and what your inner genius is as an agency, you can keep that control over. But when that web designer starts getting queries from clients that they've built websites for to say, hey, listen, thanks for building a great website, but I'm on page 72 of Google. Can you help me out with SEO? I would say that at that stage, when an agency, and obviously we talk about small to medium agencies, or even smaller than medium agencies. When you get to that stage, that's a time when you should start looking. I would suggest for a partner of some kind, because it's quite expensive. If you are a web design genius, it's quite expensive and difficult to go out into the UK market and start hiring an SEO pro. That becomes something that can be prohibitively expensive. It can break you. All of a sudden, you're now managing a manager of SEO and you don't know anything about SEO. So you don't know if you're getting ripped off by this person. You don't know if they're great at what they do, and it's expensive up front. Those UK or any country in the West, our resources are expensive. So that's stage when I think an agency should really consider, what can I get out of a resource partner? Because if I've got 17 web design clients and I've got 3 of them that are banging on my door for SEO, to go hire an SEO pro at whatever it is, £10,000 a month or £5,000, whatever it is, it's expensive, and are you going to get the value out of it? So there's a beautiful opportunity to say, hey, listen, I've got three websites that I've built that need SEO. Can you guys help me out? Sure, there's a time, and our job as a resource partner is to say, do such a great job on that SEO that when they get to 3 websites, turn to 6 websites, turn to 9 websites, theoretically they can say, hey, listen, I can actually hire a full-time person now. Our job is to be so good at it that they go, hey, man, I would never hire a full-time person. You guys have got the job nailed down. So get on with your job. I'll just, make sure that I manage you, and I'll just carry on building great websites. And I don't have to have the overhead cost of a full-time resource, the frustration of management of HR, taxes, sick leave, maternity leave. These are some of the things that are worth thinking about. But I think it's at that stage when maybe when your agency is small and you're getting out and you start requiring things that are not within your genius, that's a pretty good time to do it.
That's such a good advice, because I think if we take the web design example that, like you say, they're good at doing that. That's their superpower. But then naturally a client will say, can you help me with SEO, or can you help me with SEM, or can you help me with PPC so we can drive more traffic to the website? And you say yes. And then you frantically go either try and learn it, or you maybe go look for a freelancer, like you say, on Fiverr or Upwork or somewhere, because you want to keep the money in your agency. But of course, that's real short-term thinking, because in the end, it's going to cost you more, right? Because you'll either screw it up and lose the client, or because that freelancer takes so much management and sucks up the time. And like you say, you don't know, your skill isn't in that area, so you don't really know whether they're doing a good job or not. And that's the dangerous thing. I guess one question, I don't know whether you can answer this, but if you take that scenario, how broad do you think an agency should go? Like if they're a web design agency or a web development agency, how broad should they go? Because you can keep going, can't you, and become a full service marketing agency in the end if you're not careful, because there is a natural extension to SEO, to SEM, to PPC, copywriting, then maybe, direct marketing as well. So how broad should someone go before they say, no, this is our specialism, we want to stop here?
Yeah. I feel like that the answer to that is it all depends on the individual. Some people are more ambitious than others. If you are that brilliant web designer and you've got your 5-6 clients and you start to grow and you start to get to 10, 20 clients, and I've met a lot of agencies, as I say, we work with agencies all over the world. I've met a lot of agencies who will, some people will flat out tell you, mate, I'm quite happy with where I'm at. I don't intend on growing. I don't intend on scaling. I'm quite happy. I bring in X amount every month and I'm contributing to the family and I'm putting my kids to school and my husband goes out and works. So I'm happy where I'm at. And as heartbreaking as that is to us, because we like to help agencies scale, that's our job. As heartbreaking it is to us, I get that. So that big service agency goal is a full service agency goal is not for everyone. And I get that. And it's hard. You can't pull someone aside and say, mate, come on, what do you think? You got a great little thing here. Let's grow it. Not your business. So, it really, I would say, depends on the entrepreneur and the individual running the business. What I would say though is if you do have a small to medium agency and you're getting to that point where you start getting more queries about copywriting and I would say be very careful. I think you nailed it on the head when you said you go to Fiverr or Upwork and you meet a freelancer who actually requires more management than and they've become more expensive than actually just, not doing that service and risking reputations, business reputations that you have with clients who's built websites you built that are really happy with everything. And all of a sudden you're letting them down on SEO because you're Fiverr freelancer. So I would caution and I would say, listen, if your genius is that web design and you've got the opportunity to grow into a bigger agency and you've got demands for copywriting and graphic design and lead generation and whatnot, do it. That's where the key, I think, comes in with finding the right partner and building a relationship with that partner who can help you scale. The chances of you finding that on Upwork or Fiverr, where you find some random Gmail address in the Middle East or wherever it is, and they say, yeah, cool, I'll be this is what I do, and all of a sudden, is a Gmail account going to get you there? Are they going to be around next week? Is that a good business practice? Probably not. That's one of the things I would caution against.
Yeah, I think I've been guilty of that, where you think the cheap option is going to give you the best results. And of course, it turns out to be the very expensive option. And of course, don't forget that you put your own reputation at risk when you put someone in front of a client that doesn't deliver what you hoped, or like you say, suddenly disappear.
Yeah. Cheap is expensive. Cheap is expensive. You know how it goes.
The other thing that you said that I think it's a good reminder to kind of remind everybody is that when you are building your business, it's so important to have a vision of where you want to be headed, because there's no right or wrong way to grow and scale an agency. And, growth for somebody might mean having more flexibility in their life. That might be their vision. It might be having enough time to pursue other interests. It might 100%. Be to have certain premium clients only. So if you have a clear vision, even if you're at the beginning of your journey as a web design agency that we're using in this example, it's still super important to know where you're headed. I always liken a vision to a journey. So being in the UK, I'll use my kind of European, just so everyone knows, Steve's based out in South Africa. So imagine
if the accent didn't give it away.
But I mean, imagine, if your vision for your business is to get to the south of France,
Yeah.
and people in your agency want to go to Scotland, then we're going to be in trouble because we're not all heading in the same direction. So having that clarity around your vision will also help you work out whether some of the services that clients might ask you for are things that you want to actually include into your portfolio, or things that you want to say to the client, no, we're a specialist in web design, and that's all we do.
You sound suspiciously like a business coach.
Well, stories are always a really good way of bringing an example to life. So my journey to the south of France is a good story.
No, and I think you hit on a good one, because if there are small agencies listening, or even mature agencies, and you're not sure what your journey is, maybe it's time to sit down and decide what that journey is, because as you say, is we don't know what's ahead of us. I mean, if the last year and a half hasn't taught us that. We don't know what's ahead of us, and it's never a bad time to sit down and take stock and decide, hey man, do I want to go to the south of France, and does my team want to come with me? Or do I want to stay or move to Scotland? Exactly. It's a great analogy, because a lot of, I think, especially with that example that I gave of web design people with a genius and that they're great at, before they know it, they've got a really bustling agency, and they haven't actually sat back for even a minute to decide, where am I going with this? What is my goal here? It's a big, important part of any business. But I mean, I think digital in particular, because some people just seem to have a knack for making it work. And the next thing you know, you're in the south of France and your team's in Scotland. And
trust me, I know this from personal experience, because when I ran my agency, I started off as me, and then 5 minutes later I had 25 staff and a lot of grief. And that all happened to me from sort of external opportunities rather than any kind of plan. And if I could go back and change any of that, I would say, Rob, get a plan and, be in control of what happens. Don't let things
100%.
happen to you. So tell me, when you work with your clients, and we talked about, like, if you outsource to a freelancer, you don't, especially in some of the countries where for us in Europe, it will be much cheaper to outsource. You have no control over quality. So how do you guys, when you're providing your service, ensure that no matter who is delivering that service for your partner, they're going to get a consistent experience and it's going to match Globatel's kind of quality standards?
Well, look, I mean, I think that's very much in the way that we've set up the business. So we've got a team that, yes, is in the third world, but it's a team that's full-time employed. We don't work with freelancers. That's key, because obviously you want to know that when you wake up in the morning, your agencies that you're supporting get onto Skype and say, hey guys, how's my campaign going? And that person's at their desk. They're not just disappeared. So they're full-time employed. That's number one. The other thing we made sure of is that obviously that our team follows first world processes and quality standards. Now that's also key, because I'm not knocking the Fiverr, Updesk, Upwork situation. There's some good resources out there, 100%. The challenge with them is that there's very little, often with those guys, there's very little understanding culturally and expectation-wise. There's a very big gap between third world expectations and setting expectations and first world expectations of what is realistic. So it's really key to make sure that you've got that team following first world processes with a key understanding of who they're supporting. They're supporting agencies in the UK, in the US, in New Zealand, Australia, wherever it is, who have different expectations around things. And they follow processes that are very stringent and set and built by us, people like myself, like Damien, and the other heads of the business who have run our own digital agencies and understand what a beer company in New Zealand is expecting from their digital marketing, what a hairdresser in Australia is expecting, whereas in some of the time guys might not understand it. So it's really, really key to base things around processes and quality assurance. Obviously, that's a big one. Like you say, is that consistency and delivery is very important as well. So those are the two things that we try to do, is obviously process and quality assurance.
Yeah, and I think I've certainly experienced this in different contexts, but you can work with a great freelancer, but they will have capacity issues. And as they become more successful, then there's a chance that they won't be able to deliver that consistent service. I worked with an amazing VA for a while, and then she became more successful. So the first thing, she tried to double her prices with me, and then she just became less and less available because she was getting busy with stuff. So I think a lot of freelance people have capacity issues, which I guess you guys don't have if you're able
Yeah.
to take on more.
And that's why it's almost better to, I mean, this again, I'm not knocking anybody. We're all trying to make a buck and we're all trying to make success of ourselves. Whether you're on Fiverr, Updesk, or you're working for a company like Globital who's actually set up a proper organization. The reality is that as a digital agency owner in the UK, if you do go with that Updesk, 100% with the experience you've just relayed about having a fantastic resource who had your back left, right, and center, and then all of a sudden, didn't have the time for you because they're too good and they become too busy. They can't scale their business. They're not able to scale themselves. They don't know how to do it. They don't have the resources around it. Whereas if you join an organization like Globital who's set up and got the infrastructure, you're joining a company who can resource. So you can go out and say, hey, listen, you're doing 3 SEO campaigns for me and life is good. Hey guys, I just got back from a meeting. I just closed 50 SEO campaigns. I need to get those on the road right now. Otherwise, I'm going to lose this client. And this is big. We're in the business of saying, Rob, not a problem. Not a problem. Our job is to help you scale. So we'll just scale our business. We'll just bring on more resources. And it's easy for us to do that because we've got a big team. And that's sort of how we can protect and put agencies' minds at rest by doing that.
Great. So let me just ask you this. Let's stand in the shoes of that web development company who's getting busier. Their clients are asking them to do more tangential services connected with the websites. What would you say the best practice or some tips to go find a partner to outsource these to? What advice would you give an agency who's in that position? And then how would you advise them to make sure they manage that relationship so it's successful and for the long term?
Beautiful. It's a great question and it's an obvious question for guys like us. And I love telling people because we can write these tips down on a piece of paper. In fact, we do, and we make it very clear to agencies who we're signing up and who are getting going with us. And you'd be surprised how few of them, not how few, but how many of them actually don't follow the best practices. For us, best practices are pretty simple. When it comes to the first thing that we always suggest that agencies do with us, and we always make it very clear to them, is that they need to treat our teams like an extension of their team. A lot of agencies, and I think this is where that sort of freelancer and that reputation often of Fiverr and Updesk that has gotten this reputation often comes from this, is that a busy agency will go into Fiverr and find a resource and say, oh, cool, you're a web designer, great, design this website. I'll see you in a month. Off they go. And that you're asking for trouble. You're not giving that person the best chance for success. You're giving them you're making life really difficult, because a month later you come back and go, hey, how's that website? And they're going, dude, it's kind of finished, but it's not really, and I need it, but you weren't available. That we say to the guys straight up, treat our teams like an extension of your team. That is key, because you wouldn't, if you were sitting in an office in London and you had 4 or 5 offices around you, your graphic design department was in one department, you wouldn't just never visit them. Every morning you probably stick your head in, how you guys doing? You're right. How's that project? That's what you've got to do with our team. You've got to treat them like an extension of your team. We're a resource partner. We're not just an outsource solution. We're actually a resource partner. So really be key that you treat your resource partner as an extension of your team. That's one of the main ones. Other best practices, and these are also really important, is don't be afraid when you're doing your due diligence and you're looking for a resource partner to ask questions to the resource partner. Questions number 1, for example, a really key one, is ask them who their clients are. Now, it sounds like a stupid thing to say, but the reason I say it is, if they say to you anything but our clients are only digital agencies, we only support digital agencies, that's a resource partner you can work with. If their answer is, hey, we support digital agencies, but we also do our own, got our own agency, and we do digital marketing for soccer teams and for liquor stores and for rock bands. They're competing directly with the agencies they're supporting. And that is dangerous, because you're now going to bring your clientele over to them and say, okay, cool guys, here's my 10 clients that I need SEO done for. What protection do you have? I mean, obviously, it might be a contract of some kind. What protection do you have that they're not going to go behind your back and poach your clients from you? So you want to work with someone who is 100% wholesale. You can't have someone who's wholesale and retail. That's very dangerous, obviously. I mean, it goes without saying that it's quite dangerous. Other ones that are worth asking and really key to bed down, obviously, when you're working with a resource partner, make sure there's some sort of contract in place. And in that contract, there should be some form of confidentiality. We are very careful with the confidentiality of the agencies who we support, because we're white label. Not all the agencies who we support want their clients or even other agencies to know who they're using. I mean, we're trying our best to grow our business. It's not that easy when our happy clients are the ones going, no, don't tell anyone. I'm not telling anyone. That's the nature of the beast. But confidentiality is a really key one. You don't want, if you're an agency owner, your resource partner sharing your information or what they're doing for you with other people. And there's a bunch of other things, that are worth considering. Things like payment terms, examples of work that they've done in the past. Any good agent or resource partner, or anybody who's supporting your agency, who's got your agency's best interest at heart, will do things for your agency to try and make your life easier. For example, payment terms. That idea of payment up front for a campaign that's going to start today, where you want you to pay today, doesn't make life very easy on the agency owner, who now is to go off and get the money from their clients before any work's done, and then perform the work or get their resource partner to perform the work. So these are just some of the things that we try to get across to people. Where agencies, think about that. Ask questions of the resource partner you're considering working with. Don't be afraid to be critical and to expect them to support you. That's a key thing, is that they're a resource partner. They're partnering with you. They're not just a switch on and leave solution. They need to be there to have your best interests at heart.
Yeah, brilliant. Good advice.
Yeah.
And I've seen some examples of that of my clients that have fallen foul because of some of the things that you just talked about. And I think treating the partner and the people that you're working with in that agency as an employee is so crucial, because that's what they fundamentally are. Just a couple more questions, I'm conscious of time.
Sure.
What trends are you seeing broadly for the market coming down the road in terms of agencies? I don't know if you've got any thoughts on things that you've seen or that you think are going to happen in the next year or so?
Yeah, so it's a good question, and it's one of those, it's impossible to be right or to be wrong questions. So I'm happy to just say whatever that comes into my head, to be honest. I think what's quite interesting, I think, is in terms of trends is content. For the last 5 to 6 years, everyone's been banging on about how you've got to create content, you've got to get it out there. I feel like we've never been at a better time in human history to do that. A lot of agency owners and a lot of brands themselves, who they're supporting, are quite shy about creating content and quite shy about just holding a camera up in front of them and saying something. And, that's content, and that's valuable content. And I think, people have started to drop their guards around the quality of the content as well. This idea of having an amazing camera setup and beautiful lighting and a scripted video are well and truly gone. There's way too much out there for us to take in. You got to be just get it out there. Just stick your phone up, do it for you, and encourage your clients to do it as well. The best person at an accounting firm to talk about accounting and to sell that business is the CEO of that accounting firm, or the principal attorney of that, of that law firm. If it takes you a trip to the office to sit down for an hour and just record a bunch of clips, that you can do it. Nobody's going to sell their business better than them. But, you have to kind of kick their ass. You have to kick those businesses' asses. And sometimes you have to kick those agency owners' asses as well and say, get off your ass and actually create some content for yourself. You've got a great little agency, you've got a great little team. Show yourselves off, Don't be afraid to create content. It's something that I've adopted quite heavily in the last year or so, obviously with COVID. But I think the days of talking about how important content are over. It's time to actually start adopting that, and all brands need to do. You need to start fighting for space.
And of course, whatever you choose to do, you need to do it on a consistent basis, because none of this stuff delivers results tomorrow. It takes time. And I think that's half the issue, that someone tries something for a while, it doesn't work, they give up, they move on to the next shiny new object. And,
if you don't mind me giving you a bit of a promotion here, it sounds like that's exactly what you've got. You've done with this podcast, as you said to me, you started off once, twice. You didn't want to be that guy who stopped at the average, and you've carried on, and look at what you've got. You've got this amazing little podcast going. You're influencing agencies, you're influencing people, and that's amazing. That's exactly where you've been successful.
It took me long enough to start it for that very reason, because I wanted to do it probably for at least a year. But I thought, well, Rob, if you're going to do it, you've got to keep at it, and you've got to, keep finding the guests and coming up with the ideas and the content. But, it's I enjoy doing it, and it definitely pays dividends. So Let me ask you the last question, Steve, that I ask all of my guests. And that is, if you could go back in time and give your younger self just starting out in business some advice, what would it be?
I would say don't hold back. Don't procrastinate. Procrastination is, back in those days, let's say, 10, 15 years ago, procrastination was bad. In the world we live in today, procrastination is tenfold worse because the world is moving way quicker. So any procrastination I reckon you put in now and you actually do now affects you 10 times worse than it would have 10 years ago. So that's definitely something I would say to myself. Listen, get off your ass, stop thinking about doing it and just do it. Because I believe that if I'd taken that advice all those years ago, I'd be in a very different place. Definitely on the social and from a social media perspective, I think that's 100% true. You can't sit around waiting because, and I think another piece of advice I'd give is don't care too much about what other people think. Thankfully, I've never been that hung up on what other people think, but even with that said, I could have cared less, a little bit less. The world, people that aren't really that interested in what you're up to. Only you're interested in what you're up to. Just do it. Because I think that the more you try and the more you put into it, like you say, is persistence.
I think that's one of the things that stops people getting in front of a camera, because they say, I don't like how I look on camera, I sound. I always say to them, it's not about you, it's about your customer.
100%.
It doesn't matter what you think, you need to get on and do it. So I think the procrastination thing is probably something we're all guilty of and is probably a good bit of advice.
Well, listen, luckily the two of us are oil painting. So, here we sit.
Exactly. Well, yeah. And if people wanted to find out more about Globital and get in touch with you, what would be the best way for them to do that?
So we've obviously got our website, globitalmarketing.com, or they can come and join one of our Facebook communities. We've got a community called the Digital Marketing Dream Team, or a community called Digital Marketing Co-work Collective. Obviously, I'm assuming your audience is probably more UK, so the Digital Marketing Co-work Collective. So on Facebook, Digital Marketing Co-work Collective. You can come join us there, or globitalmarketing.com. Or, I'm happy to, if you want to send me an email or find me on Twitter or Instagram, @Slotow is my tag, @SLOTOW, or slotow@globitalmarketing.com. More than happy, send me an email. I don't mind. I will come back to you. And it doesn't have to be a sales call. I know that some agencies just have questions. And some agencies may have heard stuff here that we didn't finish talking enough about it. By all means, if you want to have a chat, at the end of the day, it's all about value. We want to try and add value and help agencies run better businesses. So that's what we're about.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'll put a link to all of those details in the show notes. And just want to say thank you so much for joining us today, and found the conversation really useful. And as ever with a good guest, we could have gone on talking for hours. I'm always trying to
listen. 100%. Listen, and thank you for having me. I really did enjoy it. And I'm happy to do it whenever again you want to.
So I hope you found today's episode really useful and insightful, and it got you thinking a little bit differently about using a resourcing partner, how to pick one, and when you should use one. As ever, please hit the subscribe button to make sure you are alerted to the latest episode, and please share it with your colleagues, and also please consider leaving a review. But other than that, I hope you have a brilliant week, and I will see you next Thursday for the next episode of the Agency Accelerator Podcast.